Let's go to the next question. What are some common pet peeves and red flags that you see? I'll go to Mary for this one.
I think my biggest pet peeve is when essays seem really rushed and there are typos in there. And like one typo in an essay, it's not going to kill your application. But when it's clear that you rushed through your essay and didn't take the time to tell us that story about yourself and help us get to know you, and there are many mistakes in it, I think that's one of my biggest pet peeves.
All right, thank you so much, Matt.
So I mentioned maturity in my last answer as one of the things that we are looking for in our review at the University of Georgia. And with that in mind, when I'm reading essays, one of our essays asks for an interesting or amusing story. And a lot of times I get beautiful stories from students, and I love reading the essays. It's my favorite part of reviewing applications until somebody writes about gross stuff. And then it's not my favorite part. So y'all, don't be gross. Don't write an essay that I couldn't read aloud with my grandmother at the Thanksgiving table. Please, I don't want it. Yeah, I appreciate you asking this question. Please don't be gross in your essays, kids.
All right, thank you so much. Let's go to Janessa.
I echo Matt. Don't be too graphic in your writing. But one piece that I think kind of goes to the extracurricular activity section, please complete the extracurricular activity section and not direct us to an attached resume. It helps us a ton when things are actually in the application itself. It helps with our flow. It helps get the information that we really need. Sometimes resumes do not include the things that are actually in the application platform. So definitely fill out that first. Now we have some students who may want to go beyond that, and that's fine. And of course, every school has their own policy. So I always ask the school if that's okay, but definitely fill out the extracurricular activity section in the actual application before attaching or sending any resume.
All right, thank you so much, Jua.
I think my biggest pet peeve is when in the, let's say, the academic self-report section, and I see a drop in grades or I get a bad grade somewhere, or there's something that's presented somewhere that's a red flag and it's just not really clear, and I never receive an explanation. That's my biggest pet peeve, because that comes back to the advocacy piece that we talked about. I think a couple of us have said that tonight. You have to advocate for yourself. Just because you may have had, hit a wall a couple of times or a couple of obstacles does not mean you will not be admitted. It simply means you need to explain. And I think that goes back to Matt's point about maturity. And it's difficult. It's not always easy. It's not even easy for us as adults a lot of times, but as young people, you have to understand that we don't know you again. I've said this more than once tonight. We cannot assume. You have to tell us. So if your grades dropped over a semester in, let's say, sophomore year, the way that I read, I automatically look for an explanation. I want to know what's going on. My biggest pet peeve is when I do not get that, when I do not see that explanation somewhere within the application, because then you may seem like a great student, but then I have more questions. And that's not a good thing. I want to be able to see the explanation, read it, say, I got it. Okay. And then that fills in that gap, and I'm able to keep going through the application, and I understand. And you still very well may be admitted. So that's my biggest pet peeve, when I don't receive an explanation, depending on whenever life, as I always say, when life happens, and it happens to all of us. We get that. I said a little earlier, there's a human process. So please, please, please provide an explanation. Okay. That is very, very important in this process. And again, advocating for yourself in the admissions process.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much for your insights. I believe this one's our last questions. I know we might be going a little bit over the hour, but I think this question is really important. So let's get to it. So what are the biggest mistakes students commonly make on the application? Let's go to Janessa first.
This is a big question. I'm trying to think of something that wasn't already there. And I think it will, I will echo my colleague Jua, because I think filling in the gaps piece is really important. And it goes back to that level of self-advocacy. Sometimes it's with grade trends, things on the outside of school that may hinder a student's performance on the inside of school. And one of the biggest mistakes that students may kind of go back to, kind of going back to an earlier question, is realizing that we're looking for reasons to admit we don't have red pens in our office and marking up your application. And so allowing us to be your advocate, because if we don't know about those areas, we're not able to advocate for you in those areas to the extent to, that you feel comfortable sharing that with us. And so know that we have our own practices. We have our own practices as admissions officers with our associations in terms of protecting your information. But we also understand that level of comfortability comes from you as the student. And so just know that that we are here and that we want to help fill in those gaps as much as possible, because just as you had mentioned, doesn't mean that you're automatically not qualified for admission or to be a really great member of our community in that way. So just to echo what he mentioned.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Let's go to Mary.
This is kind of a hard question because I think we've touched on kind of the things that we're looking for. And I don't know that there are any like big mistakes that you can make that are commonly made, right? Like I think sometimes we see big mistakes in the work that we do, but it's kind of like once or twice and not commonly. This is a big process, and it's nerve-wracking and scary as an applicant to be going through this, because there are these nameless, faceless admissions officers who are these like scary people, but we're really not scary. And so I don't know that I have any biggest mistakes to share, other than like if you have an opportunity to reach out to your people at your top colleges and introduce yourself and ask your questions and maybe send an update every once in a while if something changes, or if something goes really well for you in a sport or in a club or marching band or whatever it is that you do. I think those are some good things that you can do, but I don't know that I have any big mistakes that I can share.
All right. Thank you so much. Let's go to Matt.
Well, because Mary didn't have any, I've got a list. So no. There are two things I do want to note though. So authenticity is the best thing you can have in your application, in your clubs and organizations, in your essays, in your writing. If you are authentically yourself, the fit process is going to work both ways. You're going to end up at the right school. So please don't try and be something you're not. Don't try and pretend to be something, or put what you think we want to hear. If you are authentically yourself, this is going to work out. The other piece I want to mention is I'm our conduct officer for admissions at my school. Not everybody is going to ask about misconduct in the application, but some of us do. If you are asked, right, have you ever gotten in trouble? Have you ever gotten arrested? Whatever. If you got suspended for 3 days for wearing, backless shoes on non-backless shoe day or whatever you've done, and you're asked about it, be honest about that in the application. Telling us, I got in trouble for doing something, I played a song at prom I wasn't allowed to play, or whatever you've done. Telling us in the application isn't going to keep you out of our school. Lying about it on your application might. So if you're asked, be honest, be forthcoming, explain what's going on. Do not lie to us about misconduct. It can keep you actually from being admitted or have your admission rescinded if we find out.
All right. Thank you so much. Jua.
I don't think I have anything new to offer that we haven't already said. I'll go back to kind of my former point about telling your full story. And I think that goes to the authenticity. I think that goes back to Janessa's point about please filling out the extracurricular section. Because if sometimes we read even essays and we're like, you didn't list that. Wait a minute, where is that? Well, what did you do there? And we're looking, we're having to guess, lay it out for us. All right. So that's, I think, one of the biggest things that I see, not again, giving us the full picture. Be detailed, be thorough. Again, if there are situations out of and in that also valuing, I think to Matt's point, what you're doing. It does not have to be in the school setting. If you're helping at a home, if you have a part-time job, whatever that is, all of that is of equal value. So please know that needs to be shared. Do not leave that blank. Do not, because that, for us, that looks like you're not doing anything. We typically know you are, but we don't know that. So please fill in those gaps. And again, if there's anything that affected your academic performance, tell us what happened. That is so important in this process because again, even to Matt's point about even just dealing with any kind of misconduct, anything, all of that transparency makes a big deal in our process. It makes a very big deal in selecting the right fit for our campuses. So just let us know. Give us a sense of what's going on. So again, that we get the full picture and can again make an informed decision. All right.